Welcome to the Hashimoto's Doctor Podcast. You're now part of a growing community of people determined to take their health back through education and self-empowerment. But because of the healthcare system today, we don't have access to the types of healthcare that we want. So we have to do things differently. We've got to do things smarter, and we do that by becoming our own advocates. This podcast will give you the perspective and thoughts of one of the world's leading Hashimoto's doctors. So let's get started. Hi everyone, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're doing well today. In today's podcast, what I want to talk about is a very common deficiency that I find when I'm working with people one-on-one, and that is an iron deficiency. And an iron deficiency is such a major impairment to your overall body chemistry, because iron plays so many roles throughout multiple steps in your biochemistry, not just your thyroid physiology. With your thyroid peroxidase, which is an enzyme inside the cells of the thyroid that is required for thyroid hormone production, so your T4, your T3 production, is iron dependent. And that basically means if you don't have adequate iron, then you may have problems producing thyroid peroxidase, or this enzyme that's, again, responsible for thyroid hormone production. And so you could see that would be a major issue. Now, there are a lot of other physiological processes that are dependent upon iron. Number one, and I would say probably one of the most important things I can share with you regarding iron is the fact that I would say the most common symptom that we see in people that are hypothyroid, right, or that have thyroid symptoms, that have, a lot of the symptoms associated with thyroid dysfunction are caused by iron deficiencies. So you can have, this is the most common thing that we find, that people have, a group of symptoms. They have been told, or they suspect that they have a thyroid-related issue, when in reality, the symptoms are not being caused by their thyroid at all, or it's a multiple layers of problems contributing to their symptoms. And so this is a classic example. The most common symptom I see in practice is fatigue, no energy, brain fog, all associated with people that think that it's due to their thyroid. And in a lot of cases, the thyroid physiology is breaking down, and it is contributing to those symptoms. However, there's almost always another layer or multiple layers of problems contributing to those same symptoms. So here's a classic example. Iron absolutely contributes to fatigue if you have a deficiency. And the number one, I would say the primary mechanism through which we see this occur is a deficiency that creates anemia. Now, iron deficiency anemias are where you basically don't have enough iron, so the red blood cells are the wrong size, the red blood cells are the wrong color, and what ends up happening is that your anemia means your red blood cells cannot carry oxygen throughout your bloodstream. And if your red blood cells can't carry oxygen through the bloodstream, then you can't get oxygen to the cells of the body where you need it. And oxygen is critical for cellular function because the cells require oxygen to produce energy. And then why do the cells need to make energy? Well, they need to make energy so they can carry out their basic function, and you keep this in mind, cells, when you group cells in the body together, what does that make? It makes up a tissue. Okay, when you group tissues together, what does it make up? It makes up an organ. When you group organs together, it makes up systems. And when you put the systems together, that makes you. So on probably the most basic physiological level, cellular function is absolutely critical. So anemia, and iron anemia, is something that we see all the time. It contributes to massive fatigue because you can't get oxygen where you need to get it. You can't get it to the cells where it's needed to produce energy. So it creates massive fatigue. And a lot of people they'll mistake that for, thyroid insufficiency or a thyroid-related problem. And granted, you can have both. You can have an iron-based issue, and you can have a thyroid-based problem, and you can have, an autoimmune process, which is extremely common with thyroid-related issues. Hashimoto's is the most common cause of hypothyroidism, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition. There's an estimated 90% of people, 90%, 9 out of 10 people that are hypothyroid have Hashimoto's. And that's the cause of their low thyroid function. And most people don't know that because no one checks for it. Because from a medical perspective, it does not change one bit the management of the hypothyroidism. They're gonna give you a thyroid hormone replacement, which is a valuable tool, but it does not. There's no other intervention, so it doesn't make any difference from a medical perspective. If your doctor's, if you're autoimmune or not. That's, to me, that's a huge issue. We have to address the autoimmunity, and the reason that autoimmunity is important in this conversation is because high inflammatory loads also contribute to significant thyroid dysfunction and to significant fatigue and brain fog and issues with energy production. So really, though, iron, just coming back to iron, we see it very commonly. I see it quite a lot in menstruating females who have blood sugar problems. They tend to have the blood sugar fluctuations and the lack of blood sugar stability in cycling women tends to really disrupt their thyroid hormone chemistry. And that creates major issues where their cycles are irregular, or they tend to be very heavy, they bleed excessively through the blood loss, they lose iron, and then they become anemic, and then they have all these issues where they're trying to figure out, what's going on with their cycle and why they're so tired. But it usually comes back to blood sugar, lack of blood sugar control and regulation. And what really happens too is that, the blood sugar fluctuations usually start at an earlier age in life, and they end up, a lot of women, and it's the most common hormonal or endocrine condition in the United States is polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. And PCOS is where you develop these cysts on the ovaries, and you have more androgen or male-like hormones. And that causes a lot of problems with your cycling, and it can make your cycles very heavy, and it can cause you to lose the iron, a lot of that ties back into blood sugar dysregulation. We know there are a lot of different types of environmental chemicals and plastics that mimic hormonal, like our body's hormones, like estrogens in particular. And so there are a lot of things that can disrupt this physiology, but it can contribute to blood loss, and then loss of iron, and then there's anemia, and then there's all these hormonal problems, and then you layer thyroid issues on top of that, and then you layer autoimmunity on top of that, and then you layer a bad diet and a bad gut, and then you layer on top of that a potential infection or parasite in the gut, and then you layer on top of that you've been using all of these cosmetics and beauty care products that are full of really, quite frankly, garbage and these chemicals that are, cleared for use, but they're known endocrine disruptors, they're known neurotransmitter disruptors, they're known carcinogens, they're known to bioaccumulate and build in the human tissues, and you're putting it on your body as makeup and in lotion, and you're using it in your hair care, and you layer on top of that you're in a house that has water damage and that there's mold that you don't know about, and then you layer on top of that things that that there's a lot of controversy about, but that I think we're going to find is a major issue, and that is you have extreme magnetic field exposure throughout your home. Maybe in your workplace you're sitting on top of a router, or a wireless router, or you've got wireless network exposure, or you routinely have your cell phone on against your body, and you're constantly radiating yourself with these waves. And you layer on all of this, everything I just said, layer all this on top, and then there you go. That is the soup of problems with which people present. and with which I'm working with people to try to help them improve. And then wait, let's go one step further, because let's be very realistic here. Then layer on top of that emotional stress, layer on top of that possibly physical pain from back pain, obesity, inflammation that's driving aching joints. Layer on top of that poor sleep. And you have the typical types of people that I work with one-on-one. And these people, all these things can contribute. You see, I guess really how we got here was discussing this issue of iron deficiency, right? Where you can become anemic, and how iron deficiency there's numerous physiological processes throughout the body that are dependent upon iron. Thyroid peroxidase, the enzyme inside the cells of the thyroid, is an iron-dependent enzyme. It's required for the production of your thyroid hormones. Without iron, you're going to be in a really bad place. It's very, very foundational to have adequate iron. Is very foundational to your physiology, to your health, to your thyroid function. There are a lot of things that can contribute to iron deficiency. In the United States, the most common thing that I see in the population of people that I work with, which are primarily women, is that there are hormonal imbalances, heavy menstrual cycling, and that contributes to excessive blood loss. And then it comes back to this thing where no one's really, even when you present to your doctor, a lot of times they're not looking at root drivers of the process. They're thinking, okay, there's heavy cycling. Why is there cycling? And they look for, a physical pathology. They're looking for fibroids. They're looking for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And yeah, those things are important to look at, but we've got to ask ourselves the question, why do we have those things? Why do we have PCOS? Why do we have hormonal imbalances? Why is there an estrogen dominance or a progesterone insufficiency? And you've got to consider things like, hey, what kind of role does the stress response and does cortisol production play in this? And it all plays significant roles, because you can deplete the mother hormones needed to produce your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone through the production of cortisol, which is your stress hormone. And that'll happen. You'll deplete those necessary hormones that come before your testosterone and your estrogen if you're under stress. There are multiple layers to the problem. You can't just focus on one or two or three problems. You've got to say, okay, what is the mix of issues that is contributing to the presentation and to the breakdown in this person's physiology and chemistry? Why don't they have enough iron? Well, could they have celiac disease? That's another reality. I work with people all the time because people with Hashimoto's and autoimmune thyroid diseases, let me say it this way. People with celiac disease they're 4 times more likely to have autoimmune thyroid diseases. Okay, that's according to one of the studies that I've actually talked about it in one of my previous podcasts. But with celiac disease is a full-blown autoimmune condition against gluten. It causes you to destroy your intestinal lining, creates a ton of issues. Guess what it does? It also makes it very difficult to absorb anything. So could you have an iron deficiency because you have celiac disease and you have no ability to absorb these nutrients in your digestive tract? Could you have an iron deficiency because you have H. pylori, a bacterial infection of the stomach that the way it survives is by decreasing the secretion and concentration of stomach acidity. So if you don't have enough acid due to the H. pylori in the stomach, you can't acidify and break down the proteins and extract these minerals and iron from your food. So then therefore you don't even make it bioavailable for your body. So I hope, I know that's a lot. And I know I just went through a lot of different scenarios, but this is the reality. This is where we are. These are the things that we have to consider, that we have to think about, because this is really what leads to the manifestation of the symptoms that you have. Okay, you're tired. Well, it's not typically just as simple as, okay, let's look at the thyroid. Yep, their thyroid's low. We need to give them hormone. I agree. You can't be deficient in thyroid hormone, but the question you have to ask is, why is my thyroid hormone low? Or why am I constantly fatigued but my labs are normal? Because there's a lot of other physiology that comes into play. Don't be naive to think that we're that simple. But yet, the answers, if you do the investigation, if you dig to figure out what's driving the process, then you have a much better chance to identify and to support the body in more simple ways. Like, okay, you're deficient in iron. There's an autoimmune process that's causing an inflammatory response to the gut. You can't absorb well. You've got an infection. Well, okay, the infection of H. pylori. So what do we do? Well, what if we can identify the foods you're reacting to immunologically, your immune system's reacting to, and remove those from your diet for 3 months to 6 months? What if we kill the infection so you can have better stomach acidity? What if we use supplementation to support healing of the gut lining so you have better enzyme production and you can digest better? What if we give you some stomach acidity support to acidify the gut a little bit more once we've killed the bacteria that could be living in the gut? What if we do some stress reduction techniques to help you lower your stress response so that you're not producing cortisol excessively, and so that you can have more of the hormones that are needed to produce your sex hormones available, because you're not stealing them away to make cortisol? What if we focus on your sleep? What if we utilize some temporary nutritional supplementation to help you get better sleep so that your body can repair and recover better? What if we just do some of those things, and then we start tapering off of those things once we start seeing significant improvement for a period of a few months? What if we just worked with the body and tried to work with the body naturally to help improve a lot of the physiological processes that are being broken down? And what if we did that in combination with you talking to your doctor and getting the support for your thyroid, for the thyroid hormone deficiency, which you have to do. You need to do that. That's something. I'm not an advocate of people not taking medications at all, especially their thyroid hormone is critical to take. It's critical. It's essential to life. You can't be deficient in thyroid hormone or everything degenerates. And then if as we're working on these driving processes, these processes that are definitely breaking down the physiology, if we work on it and then you're miraculously able to produce your thyroid hormone, then high five, great, good job. Talk to your doctor and see if it might be reasonable to start tapering from your medication to see if maybe you have capacity to make the hormone again. Guess what? You may not ever have the capacity to fully make your thyroid hormone again, but big deal. If it's as simple as taking one pill in the morning that replaces your thyroid hormone, then that's a fantastic tool. We want to look at the other contributing factors that are contributing to the breakdown of your body's chemistry, though. Okay, and we want to approach everything as simply as possible at one time. And if you do the right testing, you have a better opportunity to figure out the drivers of the process. And a lot of times, addressing those driving processes can be a simple fix. Right? It doesn't have to be complex. But let me tell you what is complex, what is very burdensome, what is very tiresome, what is very exhausting. Doing a lot of trial and error for months to years and not getting results. Or just getting some better and spending a ton of money on supplementation that you think you have to take forever. Or that you're taking that's helping you. You're for example deficient in iron, and you just keep taking iron forever without any clue as to why. Well, could it be that you have a chronic infection? Could it be that you have an autoimmune condition that you're not addressing that's preventing absorption? You've got to think about why. Always, always, always. So anyway, I digress. This has been a lot longer than I anticipated of a podcast, but iron deficiency is a huge problem. Huge. And it's something that you've got to, it mimics thyroid symptoms, fatigue especially, and it creates a lot of problems for thyroid hormone production, and we want to investigate it. It's something that we have to do. So I hope this helps you to better understand iron deficiency and some of the ways that it can be caused, some of the ways that it can impact your body chemistry negatively, and helps you to be a better advocate for yourself and be better educated. If you need anything, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to my team and I. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. As always, it's my goal to help you improve your health. If you can improve your health, it will have a positive impact on your family. That will have a positive impact on your community. And we can change the world one person at a time. So I appreciate you hanging out with me today. And I hope this has helped to empower you so that you can be your own advocate. You can be a better partner with your doctor, not an adversary. And ultimately, get back to doing the things that you love and you enjoy and live the life that you deserve. I appreciate you guys. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out behind the scenes with Dr. Shook. You can also talk with and learn from Dr. Shook through Facebook Live on our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook. Don't forget, you can also get access to our videos, guidebooks, and thyroid programs at www.drbradshook.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget one more thing. We can change the world one person, one family, and one community at a time. Until next time, remember, today is your day, and no one will tell you who you are and what you can be.